The Lord was about to go out, and the servants were searching everywhere for the shoes placed at the door. At that moment, a little girl ran over holding the shoes, saying she was afraid they would get wet in the rain, so she had been carrying them. The Lord, impressed by her attentiveness, asked who she was. The girl immediately knelt in the rain, begging the Lord to take her in. The Lord smiled and said, "Yesterday you were a beggar, but if today you can earn your food with me, I'll keep you." As soon as the weather cleared, the girl hurried to tend to the Lord's chronic illness, and when the soldiers grew tired from training, she quickly served them tea. Seeing all this from the pavilion, the Lord was moved and decided to keep her. The girl's name was Sunyang. Dressed as a boy, she grew up in the Lord's household, where she learned fine writing and skills. Later, she led her own group of men, engaging in smuggling salt for the Lord. But the Lord was never content with being just the Prince of Shenyang. He wanted to become King of Goryeo. His ambitions were clearly seen by Wang Ji, who had long been secretly investigating him. Sunyang was then sent to approach Wang Ji, but she did not know who he was. Before long, the two became sworn siblings. On the eve of a secret smuggling trade, a mysterious figure tried to send Wang Ji the transaction location, so he could use it to expose the Prince of Shenyang. Unexpectedly, the messenger was killed by an arrow before he could speak, proving there were spies both around Wang Ji and the prince. The Prince of Shenyang told Sunyang to give Wang Ji a false location, planning to ambush him there and kill him, then accuse him of illicit trade. But surprisingly, Wang Ji did not go to the false location. He went directly to Sunyang's real trade site. It turned out the mysterious man had sent him another message. Caught off guard, Sunyang was captured by Wang Ji. Furious, the Prince of Shenyang accused her of betrayal, though he could hardly believe it, since she had grown up by his side. The officer Fuang insisted she was a traitor, and arranged for a spy near Wang Ji to slip Sunyang a dagger, ordering her to kill him. When brought before Wang Ji, Sunyang was told to reveal the trade site. Instead, she secretly cut her bonds, pressed the dagger to him, and signaled for silence. Then she pulled off her black headscarf, revealing a purple token, the mark she and the mysterious man had agreed upon. Sunyang was in fact the mysterious informant helping Wang Ji all along. Her betrayal stemmed from the fact that her mother had once been seized by the prince as a tribute woman, dying miserably in a foreign land. She and Wang Ji staged a scene, pretending she was going to kill him, wrestling until his men rushed in to subdue her. Wang Ji ordered her execution at dawn. The Prince of Shenyang heard of this and panicked. He could not let her die. He arranged for Sunyang to confess the trade site so that his men could ambush Wang Ji there. The next day, Sunyang revealed the location, and Wang Ji pretended to believe her. Thinking she had made great merit, Sunyang released a pigeon carrying a secret message, but it was shot down by an arrow. Wang Ji had never left. He ordered Sunyang killed and used the pigeon to send a false plea for help to the Prince of Shenyang. The prince dispatched his private troops, who clashed with government soldiers in the dark night, each thinking they had been ambushed. While both sides slaughtered each other, Wang Ji led his men in, killing all survivors. Wang Ji's eunuch aide told Sunyang to seize the prince's salt smuggling records. She rushed into the palace, claiming Fuang had betrayed them and caused the army's defeat. The Prince of Shenyang, not realizing the trap, ordered her to destroy the records. But then he grew suspicious. How could she have survived if the whole army was wiped out? She answered that her life belonged to him alone, and even if she had to die for smuggling, it should be at his hands. Just then, soldiers outside shouted that Wang Ji was coming. The prince, flustered, gave her the account books to burn, while he gathered ministers in the palace and ordered his remaining soldiers to block Wang Ji. He entered the palace, reporting to the king that Wang Ji had died in a clash during smuggling. The aging king had long wanted to abdicate, but had hesitated between Wang Ji and his younger brother, the Prince of Shenyang. Now, with only the prince remaining and the ministers supporting him, he decided to pass the throne to him. At the last moment, Wang Ji burst in, having broken through the defenses, holding evidence that the prince was behind the smuggling. Everyone was shocked. The prince calmly admitted it, claiming the profits were used to strengthen Goryeo, and even offered his own head. The king, however, would not kill him. He was still a royal brother, backed by powerful allies. Instead, the king chose a compromise. Wang Ji would be named heir, but the prince would be pardoned of all crimes. The prince was cunning, one moment fighting for the throne, the next kneeling first to the new heir. Wang Ji, now heir apparent, could only grit his teeth in frustration. To restrain the prince's power, he held a red gate banquet and issued 12 decrees. The prince led opposition, and the other ministers followed. The king slammed the table, and guards surrounded the banquet, while crimes of each minister were read aloud. Anyone who resisted would not be pardoned. Terrified, the officials sat back down, but the prince could not swallow his anger. At this time, the exiled crown prince of Yuan was being sent to Goryeo. Secret envoys from Yuan suggested to the prince of Shenyang that he deal with the crown prince. Smiling wickedly, the prince realized, if the Yuan crown prince died in Goryeo, the king would be forced to abdicate. Meanwhile, the king was also planning security for the Yuan crown prince, sending a fierce general to escort him. The Yuan crown prince also knew there might be misunderstandings during this trip, so he deliberately slowed down his journey. As soon as he entered Goryeo, he claimed illness and rested in secret. He ordered a eunuch to wear his clothes, while he himself prepared to sneak away disguised as an ordinary soldier. While looking for a place to hide, he ran into the escorting general and, with no other choice, slipped into a nearby barack. But that barack happened to belong to Sunyang, who, after betraying the prince of Shenyang earlier, had joined the general's army. Discovering someone inside, Sunyang dragged him out, intending to lock him in the stables. The crown prince, unused to such treatment, revealed his true identity. Sunyang didn't believe him and pressed him down onto the hay. Furious and humiliated, that night, during a patrol, Sunyang noticed that the entire escorting unit had mysteriously vanished. Just then, bandits secretly arranged by the prince of Shenyang attacked the camp, quickly breaking through the defenses. Their target was clear, the crown prince's tent. But the man lying in the tent was only the eunuch in disguise. Sunyang urged him to flee, but the raiders stormed in too fast and mistook him for the crown prince, killing him. Having completed their mission, the bandits retreated. Sunyang and the general entered the tent to confirm the body, only to discover it wasn't the crown prince. This left the general unable to report back, and Sunyang also realized the truth: the real crown prince had escaped. Both sides secretly began searching for him. The general found the crown prince first, but Sunyang quickly caught up. The crown prince begged the general to release him, insisting that these attacks were orders from Chancellor Yangqiol of Yuan. The general hesitated, hiding him in a wooden chest, but still drew his sword. Sunyang immediately pointed her blade at the general. Just then, word came that the king of Goryeo had arrived, and the general sheathed his weapon. But to the king, he reported that the crown prince was dead, warning that Yuan would hold Goryeo responsible. Wang Yu protested, saying the corpse was fake, and demanded to show the king proof. As tensions rose, Wang Yu's subordinate, Byung-su, dramatically brought in the crown prince alive. The general could no longer deny it. When the king asked who had discovered the crown prince, Byung-su falsely claimed the credit, though in truth it was Sunyang. Wanting to seize merit, he presented the crown prince himself. The king, unaware of the truth, praised Byung-su and promised to reward him. Only then did Sunyang realize that the person she had helped earlier was not a common man, but the heir of Yuan. The king personally escorted the crown prince to his place of exile, ordering strict security measures to prevent anyone from approaching. Byung-su expected the king's gratitude, but the eunuchs summoned Sunyang instead. In their private conversations, the king had already learned that she was the one who saved the crown prince. Byung-su was reprimanded harshly, while Sunyang was secretly brought to the king. At this time, no one knew Sunyang was a woman. The king warmly embraced her, calling her a talented brother, and appointed her as the personal protector of the crown prince. Humiliated, Byung-su defected to the prince of Shenyang and became his spy. His first assignment was to kill the crown prince. He slipped into the crown prince's quarters at night, but Sunyang intercepted him. She wounded him, forcing him to flee. After this, the crown prince asked Sunyang to teach him martial arts. Their bond grew closer and closer, to the point where the crown prince even began questioning his own feelings. Meanwhile, Byung-soo flattered the Prince of Shenyang, calling him Lord instead of Prince. Amused, the prince entrusted him with a secret mission. Yuan had sent assassins across the river to kill the crown prince, and Byung-soo would lead them. He guided Yuan troops into a sneak attack. Though Goryeo forces resisted, Sunyang managed to lead the crown prince into the mountains to escape toward the capital. But Yuan soldiers pursued them relentlessly. Outnumbered and cornered at a cliff, Sunyang and the crown prince had no choice but to leap. The Yuan soldiers searched below but found no trace. Meanwhile, the Yuan emperor died, and by succession, the exiled crown prince should inherit the throne. But Chancellor Yonkiol wanted a more obedient ruler, so he came to Goryeo himself, seeking proof of the crown prince's death. He ordered his men to continue hunting him while pressuring the Goryeo king with threats. Under this pressure, the Prince of Shenyang moved quickly, spilling blood in the capital's barracks and placing the Goryeo king under house arrest. By the time Sunyang and the crown prince reached the capital, it was already filled with the prince's men. If caught, they would be secretly executed. They had to prove to everyone that the crown prince was still alive. Sunyang devised a plan. She placed him inside a coffin, covering him with salt and dousing it with foul liquid to mask the truth. Then she lured Byung-soo, telling him she had discovered the crown prince's corpse. Eager for merit, Byung-soo opened the coffin, barely peeling away the salt and filth to check the face. Convinced, he captured Sunyang and brought the body to court as proof. During a great assembly, under Chancellor Yonkiol's pressure, the Goryeo king admitted he had killed the crown prince, begging him not to harm the innocent. Just then, Byung-soo arrived, announcing he had found the crown prince's corpse. As officials uncovered the coffin, the stench filled the hall. Ordered to confirm, the general stepped forward, pried open the layers, and suddenly the crown prince coughed. He was alive. Shock spread across the court as the truth came out. The chancellor could not yet fully subdue Goryeo, and the general signaled with his eyes, urging the crown prince to keep silent. If he spoke the truth now, it would mean open conflict with the chancellor and certain death. Confused and helpless, the crown prince pretended to be weak and timid, evading direct answers. The chancellor's two sons grew impatient, demanding to kill him immediately. But the chancellor kept calm, rebuking them, "Fools! If you kill him before the court, you'll have to slaughter all the officials who witness it as well." After the chancellor left, the general woke the crown prince and revealed the truth. The emperor had died. By succession, the crown prince was to inherit the throne, and the general had already made the final arrangements for him. That night, the court assembled again. The chancellor pressed the crown prince. "Who plotted to kill you?" The crown prince, terrified, stammered that it was King Wang Ji of Goryeo who had sent Wang Yu to murder him. Sunyang, hearing this, was furious and heartbroken. Wang Yu was her father, and yet the crown prince she risked everything to protect repaid her with betrayal. Disillusioned, she was thrown into prison, and her father, Wang Yu, was executed before her eyes. The crown prince then knelt before the chancellor, begging for mercy. He swore he had no ambition and asked to be treated merely as the chancellor's adopted son, living as a commoner. The chancellor, testing him further, revealed that the emperor was dead and that by law the crown prince should succeed the throne. Remembering the general's warning, that before the chancellor no one could claim the imperial dignity, the crown prince humbled himself even more. He insisted he was useless, unworthy of the throne, and urged the chancellor himself to take power. Seeing such cowardice, and with all officials kneeling to him, the chancellor finally relaxed his guard. The next day, the crown prince, nervous and trembling, merely looked toward the chancellor, further convincing him that he posed no threat. At last, the chancellor escorted the crown prince back to Dadu to ascend the throne. The king of Goryeo, along with his family, was taken as captives, and Sunyang was among the prisoners. On the road, the Goryeo king clashed with the chancellor's second son, Baekon, and was gravely wounded. Sunyang carried the injured king toward Dadu. Baekon, noticing Sunyang's delicate features, suspected she was a woman. That night he tore open her clothing, confirming his suspicion. He forced her into women's dress and declared he would take her as his wife. Sunyang refused, and when Baekon tried to force himself on her, Wang Ji stormed into the tent and struck him unconscious. Only then did Wang Jie learn Sunyang's true identity as a woman. Sharing such hardships, the two grew closer. But the next day, their paths diverged. Wang Jie was sent to the frontier to fight the Turks, while Sunyang was taken to Dadu. Because she refused Bekon, she was reduced to the rank of a lowly palace maid. Lined up with other women, she was stripped and inspected for selection. The first woman, with a large build and heavy features, was rejected. The second, slender but with a sorrowful face, was also dismissed. The third woman had both beauty and figure, but a scar on her arm led to her rejection. When Sunyang's turn came, a eunuch grabbed her hand, noting that her palm lines foretold greatness. Though only a maid, her destiny hinted at becoming mistress of the harem. He quietly placed her among the lower-ranked palace women, where her rise would depend on her own struggle. Not long after, news came that the emperor would marry. Each laundry maid was allowed 1 or 2 spots to witness the grand ceremony. On the wedding day, Sunyang stood among the maids, watching the emperor with his bride. She readied a hidden dagger, but before she could act, a strong hand clamped onto her shoulder. It was Bekon. Still obsessed with her, he asked again if she would become his concubine. Sunyang, consumed with her mission to kill the emperor, glared at him in fury. Bekon, baffled, withdrew. The wedding proceeded with shouts of "Long live the emperor" echoing through the hall. But Sunyang's heart burned with grief for her murdered father. She swore silently that she would one day kill the emperor who had betrayed her. Meanwhile, the Empress Dowager revealed her cruelty. Not wanting the new empress, Tanasiri, to bear an heir, she gifted her a fragrant incense burner. The sweet scent delighted the empress, unaware that prolonged use would destroy her ability to conceive. Still unsatisfied, the Empress Dowager summoned the emperor on the wedding night, warning him, "You must never let Tanasiri carry the imperial blood. Otherwise, this empire will fall into the chancellor's hands." That night, as the empress awaited him, adjusting her robes seductively, the emperor entered without desire. He drank silently, ignoring her attempts to entice him. At dawn, he lay down to sleep, leaving her humiliated. News of the emperor's coldness on the wedding night quickly spread, reaching the Empress Dowager's ears. The Empress Dowager was delighted when she heard the emperor had ignored Tanasiri on their wedding night. But she felt it wasn't enough. She ordered her attendants to spread the news throughout the palace, humiliating the arrogant new empress. Tanasiri, however, was not one to endure quietly. On the very first morning after her wedding, she refused to greet the Empress Dowager. Instead, she gathered all the palace matrons under her authority and held her own court meeting, declaring that as the new empress, she was now the mistress of the harem. This defiance enraged the Empress Dowager. She marched out to confront her, and the two women clashed face to face on the palace bridge, neither willing to yield. With her chancellor father backing her, Tanasiri was untouchable, for now. But the Empress Dowager was cunning. She ordered a eunuch to select a beautiful palace maid and send her to the emperor, intending for the girl to bear him a child. If that happened, it would both shame Tanasiri and undermine her power as empress. The eunuch chose a maid from Goryeo, Sunyang. Hearing she would be sent to the emperor's chambers, Sunyang immediately agreed. This was her chance to assassinate him. That night, the eunuch wrapped her in blankets and delivered her to the emperor's bedchamber. Outside, he lingered, listening nervously. The emperor, however, showed no interest. Then the Empress Dowager herself knelt outside, urging him to leave his seed that night to counterbalance the chancellor and the empress. The maid embraced the emperor, and though reluctant, he eventually gave in. By morning, the news had spread. One of the Goryeo maids had won the emperor's favor. Tanasiri was furious when she discovered this. She interrogated all the Goryeo women one by one, threatening to have the guilty one executed. The chosen maid trembled in fear, but just as the guards were about to drag her away, the Empress Dowager intervened. "No, she carries the imperial blood now. To kill her would be treason." Tanasiri seethed but was forced to relent. The Empress Dowager smirked in victory and had the maid brought back to her own quarters for safekeeping. When the emperor later learned of this plot, he grew agitated. Still too weak to challenge the chancellor, he wandered the palace aimlessly in frustration. By chance, he encountered Sunyang and asked her to serve him tea. Studying her face, he asked if she had a brother, because her features reminded him of someone he once knew. Sunyang denied it, but seized the moment. As she poured the tea, her hand slowly reached for the hairpin in her hair, ready to strike. Just then, the emperor turned suddenly, catching her movement. He yanked out the hairpin and sneered, "So crude. You thought this could pass for an ornament." The emperor handed over his personal jade pendant to the maid. At that moment, Tanasiri appeared, snatched it away, and struck the maid across the face. Furious, she confronted the emperor. The emperor grew uneasy. With Tanasiri's chancellor father backing her, she held enormous influence at court. To pacify her, the emperor reluctantly spent the night with her. Though unwilling, it became known that they had shared a bed. News quickly reached the Empress Dowager. She reassured the emperor, "Do not worry. Tanasiri cannot bear a child. As long as the Goryeo maid conceives, Tanasiri will lose her power." But Tanasiri and the chancellor were not idle. They plotted to cause the maid to miscarry. Knowing the maid was from Goryeo, Tanasiri sought someone from her homeland to act as her pawn. She first tested a young Goryeo maid named Yunhwa, giving her a sealed letter and strict orders not to read it. Yunhwa's curiosity overcame her, and she opened it. Alarmed by its contents, she panicked, then pretended she had dropped it in the river. When questioned, she denied reading it, but Tanasiri saw through her and dismissed her. It was only a test. Tanasiri sought absolute loyalty. Her next choice was Sunyang, who had once defied her. She gave Sunyang a similar task. On her way, Sunyang peeked at the letter. It said, "Kill the messenger." She instantly realized this was another test. When confronted by the guards, she refused to betray the source, even when a sword cut off a lock of her hair. Tanasiri arrived just in time and declared the test passed. Now trusting Sunyang, Tanasiri secretly ordered her to poison the pregnant maid's food with an abortifacient. Under watchful eyes, Sunyang slipped the powder into a batch of pastries. At afternoon tea, the maid was served the desserts. The maid hesitated, but Tanasiri, to prove there was nothing to fear, ate one herself. Believing it safe, the maid followed. What Tanasiri didn't know was that Sunyang had cleverly kept the poisoned pastry separate. Tanasiri thought her plan had succeeded, but soon after, the chancellor's men also managed to slip poison into the maid's food. That night, the maid fell ill with severe pains. Suspicious, Sunyang consulted a trusted eunuch and confirmed that the child still lived. Feigning distress, the maid clutched her belly and appeared before Tanasiri, who believed the miscarriage complete. Convinced of her victory, she had Sunyang spread word throughout the palace that the maid had lost the imperial child. Rumors flew, and soon the Empress Dowager confronted Tanasiri. She instantly saw that this was a scheme, but Sunyang had already laid the groundwork. Tanasiri pressed for confirmation and demanded the maid be examined again by a court physician. The Empress Dowager hesitated. If Tanasiri dared insist, surely she had taken ruthless measures. Still, Tanasiri pushed ahead. But Sunyang had arranged everything. When the physician came to take the maid's pulse, the arm he touched was not hers but that of another palace girl hidden under the blankets. The deception fooled the physician completely, and his report confirmed what Sunyang wanted the court to hear. The physician reported to the Empress Dowager that the maid might have miscarried. The Dowager nearly fainted. This unborn child was her final bargaining chip to counterbalance Tanasiri and the chancellor. She sternly warned the physician not to reveal the diagnosis to the chancellor. Though he promised, the physician was seized as soon as he left the palace and dragged to the chancellor's residence. Under threats, he admitted the maid had shown no clear pregnancy pulse. The chancellor seized upon this and plotted to destroy the dowager's position. He rallied court ministers to accuse the maid of feigning pregnancy and pressured the emperor to order a public examination before the officials. At first, the emperor refused, but under the chancellor's immense pressure, he reluctantly stamped the decree. Outside the hall, the Empress Dowager stripped off her imperial ornaments and begged the emperor to rescind the order. Tanasiri smirked triumphantly, unaware that the scheme was about to backfire on her. Cornered, the emperor could do nothing. Both in power and in law, the chancellor held the advantage. Helpless, the emperor withdrew to a quiet corner, despairing. Only Sunyang, who knew the truth, appeared at his side. Once she had sought his life, but after all that had unfolded, she now saw him as the only force who could resist the poisonous chancellor and Tanasiri. She revealed the truth. The emperor, seizing upon her counsel, pretended to yield to the chancellor's demand. Days later, the chancellor confidently staged the public examination at the drill ground. The emperor asked why it had to be there. The chancellor declared, "If she is truly faking her pregnancy, then it cannot be her alone. Her co-conspirators must also be unmasked." The first physician was summoned again. This time, he declared the maid was indeed pregnant. Startled, the chancellor called upon 2 more physicians. Both confirmed the same. The gathered ministers were stunned. The Empress Dowager immediately struck back. To suspect a woman carrying the imperial heir of faking her pregnancy, this is not only absurd but has made the imperial clan a laughingstock. She demanded punishment for the instigator, Tanasiri. Tanasiri faltered, nearly confessing, but the chancellor intervened to protect her, claiming she had merely listened to rumors. In the end, the blame fell upon Tanasiri, who was forced to kneel outside in disgrace until she fainted. That night, though the emperor wished to pardon her, fearing the chancellor's wrath, the dowager pressed on. She demanded the maid be promoted from palace maid to Chiron, a consort of rank, ensuring her safety. The emperor agreed. Thus, the maid carrying the imperial child was officially elevated. Tanasiri realized too late she had been outplayed by Sunyang. Furious, she sought to eliminate her. But before harm could come, the emperor intervened. He had discovered that Sunyang was none other than the same Goryeo woman who had once saved him in his time of peril. Now serving by his side as a maid, Sunyang stirred emotions within the emperor. Against his will, he began to fall for her. Yet her heart remained with Wang Yu, the Goryeo king, who had just returned victorious from the frontier. When Wang Yu entered the palace, he drew every gaze. Maids, ministers, even the neglected Tanasiri felt her heart stir. But Wang Yu's mind was elsewhere. His bond was with Sunyang, forged through life and death struggles. The emperor saw their closeness and was unsettled, for he too cared for her. Meanwhile, Wang Yu's political ambitions clashed with the chancellor's dominance. A month later, as rumors of ghostly writings appeared across the city accusing the chancellor of poisoning the late emperor, unrest spread. Posters vanished as soon as they appeared, leaving behind only bold, blood-red words. "The chancellor murdered the former emperor. He will not escape retribution." The people whispered and anger boiled. The chancellor was incensed. Convinced the emperor or the dowager were behind it, he marched soldiers to surround the palace. But when confronted, the emperor wept helplessly, proving his innocence. The chancellor then turned his suspicion on the dowager, storming her quarters. Fierce as ever, she mocked him to his face. But before he could strike further, a sudden downpour swept the city, and new ghostly writings appeared on the streets. The chancellor was shaken but baffled. At this moment, Wang Yu approached him boldly. "Just as you once betrayed the late emperor to seize power, only someone close to you, someone with real influence, would dare to challenge you now." Though the chancellor bristled, Wang Yu's words struck home. Days later, he summoned Wang Yu again and asked how to draw out the traitor. Wang Yu produced a vial, explaining it contained a potion that could simulate death. "Let your son drink it. When your enemies believe you dead, they will reveal themselves." Convinced, the chancellor gathered his trusted generals for a banquet. Midway through, after raising a toast, he suddenly vomited blood and collapsed lifeless to the floor. Wang Yu suddenly realized something was wrong. The wine was not the false poison he had offered. Someone had switched it. The chancellor was truly poisoned and vomited blood throughout the night. Even the imperial physicians were helpless. The emperor appeared, listening to the chaos from outside. He smiled coldly. He had already uncovered Wang Yu's scheme and secretly ordered General Beck on to replace the false poison with real venom. This way, he could both kill the chancellor and frame Wang Yu, dragging Sunyang down with him. The chancellor's son, Tankishi, immediately arrested Wang Yu. In prison, Wang Yu argued, "It was you who tested the wine. You know I am not the killer. Instead of killing me, find the true culprit." Just as he raised his blade, Tanasiri rushed in and persuaded her brother to release Wang Yu. She even asked Wang Yu to continue assisting their chancellor father. Wang Yu outwardly agreed, but soon secretly met with the Empress Dowager. The truth was revealed. The posters and blood-red writings that had shaken the capital were Wang Yu's own doing. There was no real traitor. His plan was to weaken the chancellor's power. But one step remained. Someone had to openly challenge the chancellor's faction. Wang Yu urged the dowager to support General Fong, who could face Tankishi directly. To take the position of chancellor, Fong would first have to defeat Tankishi. Soon, General Fong launched his attack. Wang Yu and General Baek On, still pretending loyalty to the chancellor, arrived at the chancellor's residence. There, they saw Tankishi grieving over a coffin, seemingly his father's. They had planned only to weaken the chancellor's influence, but now, seizing the moment, they chose to strike decisively and destroy his faction. That night, General Fong led his troops in open assault. Sunyang spotted one of Tanasiri's maids carrying a bowl of black bean soup, food that only the chancellor drank every day. She immediately realized the truth. The chancellor was not dead, but hiding within Tanasiri's chambers. The coffin had been a trick to expose traitors. Sunyang loosed an arrow bearing a white strip of cloth, their agreed secret signal. Wang Yu and Baek On saw it, understood, and instantly switched sides, cutting down the general. Together, they preserved the chancellor's power. Though weakened, his faction remained intact. The next day, the still recovering chancellor presided over judgment of the rebellion. He produced false witnesses who accused the Empress Dowager, and she was imprisoned. Meanwhile, rumors spread that Tanasiri was pregnant. Physicians, however, found no fetal pulse. Her infertility was well known. To avoid humiliation, she began stuffing her robes, pretending to be with child. 6 months later, the true imperial consort, the Goryeo maid, was about to give birth. Tanasiri grew jealous and conspired with Sunyang to kill her during a temple visit. Though afraid of the risks, Sunyang agreed and disguised men as bandits to ambush the consort's procession. Among the maids traveling was Sunyang. Half a year earlier, she had secretly conceived a child with Wang Yu. For a palace maid, this was a crime punishable by death. The consort, aware of her plight, had arranged for Sunyang to escape under cover of the temple visit. As Sunyang and the consort bid farewell, the false bandits struck, slaughtering guards and maids alike. Horrified, Sunyang fled into the woods. Wang Yu's men briefly shielded her from pursuit, but she fell down a slope, racked by labor pains. Alone in a mountain cave, she gave birth after a harrowing struggle. But the pursuers did not relent. Clutching her newborn, she fled until she was cornered at a cliff's edge. In the struggle, an enemy tore the infant from her arms. As Sunyang fought desperately, an arrow struck her, and she and the child tumbled from the cliff. By fate, Sunyang survived, rescued at the last moment. She frantically searched below the cliff, finding only the corpse of a soldier. Her child was gone. News soon spread that both the consort and Sunyang were dead. The emperor, devastated, fell ill with grief. The chancellor seized this chance, taking control of the imperial seal and acting as regent. Meanwhile, Tanasiri's supposed due date approached. She needed a way to survive the deception. She retreated to a temple, claiming to pray for her child. Secretly, she begged physicians to cure her infertility, but nothing worked. Finally, despairing, she prayed fervently to the Buddha. Just then, a monk appeared with an abandoned infant, found in the valley. The child was miraculously alive. Tanasiri cradled him with tears of joy. "Now I have a way," she told her maid. To secure her secret, she ordered her servant to kill the monk. The monk's temple was set aflame, and Tanasiri left with the child. She did not notice the boy's small foot bore 3 birthmarks. Back at the palace, she staged her labor. Behind closed doors, maids smeared blood on the infant, then rushed him out, crying, "A prince!" The women rubbed blood on Tanasiri as well, faking the signs of childbirth. The chancellor and his sons hurried in. Overjoyed, they cradled the child, believing him to be the imperial heir. Though he was nothing more than a foundling, Tanasiri treated him as her own, determined to raise him to be emperor. This is just the first part of the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a heart for part 2. See you in the next episode.